We go. So today's Mindset Monday is kind of a topic. So as I was setting up my podcast to listen for the week and the weekend, I ran across this one and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be perfect for Monday, for Mindset Monday, because it also resonates on a lot of different ways with some of the topics that we've been having around self-worth, self-love, self-confidence, and how all those things play a part. And the conversation that Ed was having today on his podcast around self love and around several signals that you may be lacking in self love and what exactly is self love. And so, one of the way that he started the conversation was he says, I want my friends and family to love me, and yet I don't want them to just accept me. And I'm like, that's an interesting hook, Ed. Tell me more. And he says, I want my friends to expect the best of me and not just let me be good. He says, I want them to love me, but I don't need them to accept all of me. He's like, I expect my friends and loved ones to want the best from me and of me, right? I need people around me to push me to continue to be my best self. And so when he went into this conversation of self-love, he started it with the highest. Well, let me ask you guys, what is the highest form of self-love? What would you say?
Discipline.
Discipline? Any other thoughts? Well, if there's no other thoughts, it's because Michelle had it correct. It's
Mhm.
discipline, right? It's discipline and self-care, right? So the discipline's the highest form of self-love, and self-love is simply high accountability. Self-love is high accountability. And he says the thing about self love is you can't truly love yourself until you're committed to actually being yourself. If you're lacking self love, it may also be because you're still hiding behind the mask you think others want to see. He says you're playing a role and you may be in love with a character instead. He says one of the best ways that we can begin to develop and create and craft more self-love is that we need to take actions on need rather than want. Actions on need rather than want. And then you can, and here's the other one he said. This one kind of dropped. And so then I'm gonna share like about 11 markers that may signify that you may be lacking self-love in certain areas. So he's just kind of giving us an example or a conversation around self-love. He says you can only love others to the extent that you love yourself as well. You cannot give to others what you do not have. And so if you really truly desire to love others at the highest level, it has to start with you. And he says people in high self-love have a high level of self-care. And that self-care extends to exercise, diet, relationships, boundaries, conversations, and environment. Self-care is all of those things and creating high expectations and high boundaries around those things. He says, what happens to our self-talk when we're down? He says, what oftentimes happens to our self-talk when we're down, when we've made mistakes, when we have failed? He says, oftentimes the conversation that we have with ourselves isn't very loving. It isn't very loving. And he says, and that's exactly when you need yourself the most. That's when you need self-love the most, especially right after a mistake. And then he said this, and I don't know if you know Ed, he's also very spiritual as well. And he says, if you're in a moment where you're being hard on yourself, he says, I need you to stop for a second and just take a moment and imagine how your savior, how your source, or how the energy of true love would speak to you in this moment. And does it match? When you're being hard on yourself, take a second and ask yourself, would your savior, the universe, or the energy of true love speak to you in the same way? And if it wouldn't, how would it speak to you differently? and begin to speak to yourself. So here's some signs that you may be lacking self-love. And then we're going to go into a conversation of how to begin to develop and create more self-love. Self-love. All right. So sign number one that you may be lacking some self-love is you may be avoiding conflict. You avoid certain conversations because you don't want to rock the boat. You don't want to upset others. That can often be a symptom or an indicator of low self-love. You may be feeling awkward a lot. Like you don't belong, like you're out of place, like just awkward. Another indicator is you're always looking for an escape. Your phone, TV, substances, addictions. That it's difficult for you to sit with yourself is an indicator of possible self-love. You constantly feel misunderstood. You constantly feel misunderstood. And he said, it's not that you are confusing, it's just your need to be understood is a symptom of low self-love. Someone with high self-love doesn't need to be understood. They just are. Another indicator of possible self-love is resentment. You hang on to things, grudges, feuds, bad blood. Someone with high self-love holds no grudges. They don't need to. You sometimes feel invisible. You compare yourself a lot. Another symptom of a lack of self-love is you think twice before speaking. You're constantly second-guessing your words. Another indicator of possible lack of self-love is you think you have to be perfect. You think you have to be perfect. And what that simply says is you're more committed to comfort than growth because no one is perfect. Nothing is ever perfect. And imperfections create opportunity, which also creates vulnerability. So the desire to not take action is just a symptom of a lack of vulnerability. Another is no one knows the real you, quote unquote. No one knows the real you. And yet, how would they if we're not committed to being our true self? And lastly, you're making yourself sick. You're tired. Your gut hurts. You have headaches. You don't sleep. Low energy. Your lack of self-love and the conflict around being yourself truly and comfortable in the world around you without the need for acceptance and being understood is manifesting itself physically through the stress that you're creating. You're like, great. Thanks, Matt. Way to kick off Monday. So as I'm listening to this whole thing, I'm asking myself, okay, where do I think I've got this right? And where are my glaring opportunities? Because, like I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of like the deep work, the mental work, the quiet stuff, the journaling, the self-reflection, the therapy, all the coaching, etc. I feel like I've got, you know, some good foundational skills and techniques around mindset, etc. And yet, I look at that list of 11 that I just gave you and I go, dang it. There's at least 5 of them that like go way into the core. I'm like, yeah, my mindset's strong. And then I have grudges. Yeah, my mindset's strong. And I don't sleep very well. Yeah, I'm good. I have a lot of self-love. And sometimes I have imposter syndrome. And I have a lot of self-love. And it's like, okay, all right. So now what? If I desire to increase my self-love, what has to change? What do you think? What's something that you can do if you desire to be more self-loving? This is participatory now.
I thought there was a pause, like you were thinking. And
It was for dramatic effect. What do you think? What are some ways, based on the things that Ed talked about at the very beginning, how to cultivate and foster a practice of self-love to where then it becomes your being versus a desire?
like life is like an ever evolving journey. Like just when you think you get to the peak of the mountain, you realize like, oh wait, there's 10 more steps I need to go, or one more peak I need to go up, whatever, right? So I think it's just a reminder that I too have done a lot of self discovery and
Mhm.
really worked on self-love, like how I used to talk to myself in my head. I would never talk to anybody else the same way I talk to myself. And so
Yeah.
I've really worked hard to combat that. And there's a lot of things that I've achieved. I feel like I'm in a better place than I was or ever have been. But at the same time, I still see so much room for growth and I still struggle with the same things. The fear it's kind of funny because I started my day this morning with, I always start off with like Bible verses and
Mhm.
then meditation or prayer. And then I do my workout. And the big thing that stood out to me today was a Bible verse about fear and really saying that he who fears has not been made perfect in love was the verse that kept coming to me. And so it's the same thing. Like maybe that verse, I thought that verse originally was talking about like love of other people, but I'm thinking maybe that's actually self-love. Maybe I'm having these
Mm,
fears because I still have things I need to discover about myself and figure out how to love myself more.
nice. What else?
I kind of feel like just make time for yourself.
Mhm.
So many times we don't make time for ourselves. Last night, I got super irritated because both of my girls needed me and my husband needed me all at one time. And they're all yelling, Mom, Mom. And sometimes it just feel like just makes time for yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday I had a workout that kept getting pushed. It kept getting pushed and the weather wasn't nice. And then we were having people coming over for dinner and all these things. And like we procrastinate, we put off. This is so funny. Okay, I have to tell this story. So yesterday I got caught in a little circle of scarcity. I was in my feelings. I wasn't feeling very abundant. And it was a long weekend. It was kind of tired. And like people, like everyone wanted to come over for dinner. And I'm like, I just really would love for us to have some like just quiet time. And then a game night or whatever. And I didn't do a good enough job because I didn't have enough self-love to articulate my needs and my boundaries at the time. I didn't want to let anybody down. I didn't want to create conflict. So I didn't say anything. However, all of that energy just kept coming out all day. And to the point where, like, I got to get to the gym. I've got 3 miles to run. My daughter wanted to go to the gym. She wasn't ready. And I'm like, how long do they give you at school? Why do you need more than 6 minutes right now? Like, we're going to the gym. Like, let's go. And so I had a moment of outburst. And then my wife's like, I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel everybody. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. I just walk. I just left. And she goes, I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel dinner and we'll just hang out. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, good. But then I walked out and I'm in my feelings in like, and I get to the gym, no lie. I walk up to the treadmill and you know how like the treadmill has like the plastic barriers on the side on the bottom right corner of the treadmill was tucked $100 bill. Someone left $100 bill on the treadmill, tucked in purposefully as a gift. I walk up to it, I reach down, and I look around, and the guy behind me, he's like, I've been here for 20 minutes. I didn't even notice. And I'm like, are you for real? Like, and I thought it was like one of those like Easter cards. Like, you know, like you look down, you open it up, it's like a business card. No, it was a straight, legit $100 bill. And I'm looking around going, okay, I get it. I'm a money magnet. Okay, I get it. And then so it's like, man, the universe just smacks you in the face with it sometimes. Right. And so here's it just it had me thinking about something else. So I'd like you to write something down. Like here's a question, here's a quiz. Who is the one person in your life right now that you would never break a promise for? Like no matter what, you would just make sure no matter what was promised got done. Like it just in your like there's no way you could break a promise for them. Write down a name, write down that person. And if you're not writing down, do you have somebody in mind? I'm not going to ask you to name the person, but I want you to ask yourself, was it you? And why not? I see some collective inhale exhales because I fell for the same question. And that was my aha. Why are we so willing to do so much more for others when the one person that is counting on us the most is our future self? If self-love equals discipline and self-care is the highest form of self-love, why do we continue to break our promises to ourselves? We got 3 minutes. Share with me your thoughts, ahas, takeaways from today.
Besides the fact that you're always in my head.
Yeah.
It's a collective consciousness on this call. That's all. We're a hive mind.
My thing was kind of like, I feel like we're programmed that way and we need to reprogram ourselves. Like the programming, so much of when we were little or things that were taught around us was, don't be selfish, and so you hear that a lot. Don't be selfish, don't be selfish. And I think that we have equated self-love with being selfish when in fact it's actually opposite.
Yeah. It is opposite.
what a gift to give our kids if we could help them not to have the same programming that we have and help them understand how important self-love and self-regulation is.
I mean, it's like the number one thing they tell you on the airplane.
Yeah.
If you desire to save anyone around you, the number one thing you have to do is make sure your mask is on, or you can't save anybody, or you become somebody else's problem. See, when you're not taking care of yourself, it's it's so disrespectful because now you're counting on somebody else to take care of you. You're creating a burden for someone else. When you refuse self-care and self-love, you are simply saying, I am a burden. Someone else needs to take care of me. But right? Other thoughts? Ahas, takeaways? We got last 30 seconds.
Michelle, something that Matt told me months ago, probably over a year ago, I'd said something about not wanting to be selfish. And he was like, do you know what that word means? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, everyone knows what that means. It's like, it just means it's about you. That's it. It's not a bad thing. It's our culture, society, everything made that word bad. And I was like, that messed with my brain so much because like you said, you don't be selfish. It's a bad thing, but it's not. It's just like we've been talking about all morning. It's taking care of yourself and making sure you're okay so you can take care of everyone else.
The
But
word,
that's still
yeah,
in my
the
head.
word just simply is self-ish. It's of self.
Yeah.
It's making sure you're taken care of first. Now, at the expense of others is a different conversation, as opposed to I'm going to focus on me so then I can even give more to you is a different conversation. But if there's only one of something and there's three of us, then it's a different conversation.
Maybe we
Right?
need to like start a new trending hashtag, be selfish.
Be self-ish. Right? Awesome. All right. So ask yourself, how can I exhibit self-love today through discipline and self-care? Is there a boundary that needs to be created? Is there a conversation I'm avoiding? What am I avoiding today that makes the rest of my days better? And that's it. And that's your conversation for today. Happy Monday, y'all. Bye.
Bye.